Welcome to my YouTube channel, Curious Perro. This video is going to tell you my story. I'm calling it A Gringo Goes to Medellin Colombia, but it's the second of two videos on this topic. This is part of my series, Planning a Trip to Colombia During Uncertain Times, as I'm planning to return to Colombia at the end of May. I'm looking back at previous trips to help me decide where I'm going to go, and I thought it might be helpful to you as well. But before we get started, please subscribe to my channel below so you don't miss any of the adventures. I will see you on the other side of the introduction, and watch on. So let's get right into the topic, making travel arrangements. There are a number of logistical things that you must do before traveling. Of course, I must decide where I want to go to. Then I look at making airline reservations and then securing the accommodations, either hotel or Airbnb, where I'm going to stay. Sometimes I'll also make pre-arrangements or plans for tours or specialized transportation to get me from place to place. It all depends on where you're going and what type of logistics you need to make. There are special circumstances when flying into Medellin. That is, that the main airport that you'll be flying into, Jose Marie Cordova International Airport, is not located in Medellin. It's about 29 kilometers outside the city by transportation bus car. It takes about a half hour to get from the airport to downtown Medellin. There's also, not to confuse you, but there's a second airport in Medellin called the Herrera Airport. It's a regional airport. I don't know of any flights that go into that airport that are international in nature. But there's three ways to get from the airport to the downtown area if you don't have a person picking you up. First of all, there is a bus one could take. The bus costs about 10,000 Colombian pesos, or COP as they call them, per person. That's equal to about $3 US. It takes you from the airport to a place called Mall of San Diego. This is kind of a meeting point for a lot of things. Second choice is a taxi. And if you take a taxi, you have two options. You have a shared taxi, and you also have a, just one that you get on your own. If you get a shared taxi, it costs about 17,000 COP, which is about $4.75 per person. With this, what happens, you go out to the taxi spot and they will set you up with the taxi. Someone usually sits in the front, some people sit in the back. Even during COVID, they would have someone in the front and someone in the back. They spray down your hands, spray down your luggage before you get in. Everyone's wearing a mask, but it's quite inexpensive at 17,000 per person COP, or 475. The other idea is a taxi. The taxi is about 80,000 COP, or about $23. But those are the main three options. As I mentioned, I took a shared taxi to the Mall of San Diego when I went, and then I picked up a taxi from there and I took it to my accommodations in Sabaneta, which was an Airbnb. Sabaneta is a small town located a little bit south of Medellin. It's near the south end of the metro, which I'll tell you more about in just a moment. I chose to stay in the quiet town of Sabaneta rather than in the middle of Medellin because despite all the videos I watched about Medellin, it was difficult for me to decide ahead of time which barrio or neighborhood I wanted to stay in. As you might remember, this was my first trip to Medellin, and before I stayed in the middle of town, I wanted to better understand the city. The one thing that I had figured out before traveling to Medellin is that they have a state-of-the-art metro, rail, and cable system. It is not only inexpensive, it is a better option than taxis or buses for getting around Medellin. You have to realize Medellin Colombia is one of the most dense populated cities in the entire world, and the driving around there, the streets are horrible traffic. The standard fare for a metro trip in Medellin is about 2,550 COP, which is about 70 cents in US dollars. If you use a Civica card, you can also get a discount from there. So the locals even get a discount from the 70 cents. So let's check out some of the sites that I visited while I was in Medellin. We're going to start off with Parque Sabaneta, aka Sabaneta Park. Parque Sabaneta is considered one of the nicest city parks in the entire Medellin metro area, and it's worth visiting, particularly at Christmas time. This is a 1 square block plaza, and it's the main hub of the town. It is filled with trees for shade and surrounded by a number of small restaurants, bars, shops, a beautiful church, Iglesia de Santa Ana, and it has street vendors and you name it. It's just a quaint, beautiful, cute little town. One of the other reasons I stayed in Sabaneta is that I'm considering in the future becoming an expat in Colombia. In addition to visiting all the, tourist attractions, I am also looking for a potential future home. I live in a large city in the United States, and it would be difficult for me to live full-time in a rural area on a farm or finca. Sabaneta is a bedroom community to Medellin with a population of only about 45,000 people, while Medellin, on the other hand, has a population of about 2.4 million people. The next destination is Comuna 13. Comuna 13 used to be one of the most dangerous areas in Medellin, but outdoor escalators and community projects have helped turn this poor and violent district into a center of activity and artistry. Comuna 13 was one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the world. It was run by violent drug cartels who used the poor hillside barrio as a stronghold for trafficking drugs and hiding guerrillas and gangs. But things began to change in 2002 when President Alvaro Uribe launched a raid called Operation Orion on Comuna 13 using 3,000 troops backed by helicopters. After clearing out the area, the government started redeveloping the houses and creating community centers. In 2011, the government installed outdoor escalators, thus connecting this isolated hillside neighborhood to the city below. The result was the creation of an area surrounded with murals and graffiti with bright colors and street art. I would suggest you look up the history of Comuna 13, and if you get a chance to visit there, they have a museum with speakers who show you pictures and explain exactly what went on. This is an incredible transformation. The next destination is Plaza Botero. A major landmark in the city, Plaza Botero is a square just outside of the Museo de Antioquia, which is the Antioquia Museum. It is filled with sculptures made by Medellin-born artist Fernando Botero. It features 23 sculptures. Botero donated these to put in the square, and also several pieces of art for the museum when it was renovated in 2004. It is located in the El Centro area of Medellin, which is also known as the Old Quarter. Fernando Botero Angulo, who was born in 1932, is the most famous artist that I know of from Medellin. The signature style of his art is known as Boteroism. Makes sense. It depicts people and figures with exaggerated large sizes. Some are funny, some are satirical. It really depends on the piece. His art can be found in highly visible places around the entire world, including Paris, London, New York City, Florence, to name a few. My final destination on this trip was the Metro Cable. The Metro Cable is a gondola lift system implemented by the city of Medellin with the purpose of adding to the transportation services of the Medellin Metro. It was designed to reach some of the city's informal settlements on the steep hills. It is considered to be the first urban cable-propelled transit system in South America. In 2004, the first route went from the valley of Medellin to the steep hills in communes number 1 and 2. It was the first system of its kind in the world. It was dedicated to providing public transportation with a fixed service plan. It carries 30,000 people a day. As of 2020, the Medellin Metro Cable system has 5 lines. Overall, the system has been received with enthusiasm by the locals, who are mainly lower income users and get in line and will stand in line for up to about 45 minutes just to be able to get from the steep hills down into the valley. It's very similar to the escalator in Comuna 13. It provides people who live up in the hills the ability to get into the valley to get work. I hope you enjoyed this video. When you get an opportunity, please look down and subscribe. I don't want you to miss any of the adventures, and I'll see you next time.